How did the Brahmins wed an AHIMSAK god to a bloodthirsty goddess? Having started drinking and flesh-eating, the Brahmins did not hesitate to write Puranas advocating animal sacrifices. One such Purana requires a special mention. It is called the Kali Purana. This Purana is written with the express purpose of propagating the worship of the goddess Kali. In this Purana, there is an Adhhyaya called Rudhir Adhhyaya, which means the bloody chapter. I give below a summary of the Rudhir Adhhyaya. In this chapter, the god Shiva addresses his three sons Betal, Bhairavar and Bhairav in the following terms. I will relate you, my sons, the ceremonies and rules to be observed in the sacrifices, which being duly attended to, are productive of the divine favor. The forms laid down in the Vaishnavi Tantra are to be followed on all occasions and may be observed by sacrifices to all deities. Birds, tortoise, alligators, fish, 9 species of wild animals, buffaloes, bulls, he-goats, inshimons, wild boars, rhinoceroses, antelopes, guanas, reindeer, lions, tigers, men and blood drawn from the offerer's own body are looked upon as proper oblations to the goddess Chandika, the Bhairavas, and so on. It is through sacrifices that princes obtain bliss, heaven, and victory over their enemies. The pleasure which the goddess receives from an oblation of the fish and tortoises is of 1 month's duration, and 3 from that of a crocodile. By the blood of the 9 specifies of the wild animals, the goddess is satisfied 9 months, and for that space of time continues propitious to the offerer's welfare. The blood of the wild bull and guana give pleasure for 1 year, and that of the antelope and wild boar for 12 years. The Sarabhas blood satisfies the goddess for 25 years, and buffaloes and rhinoceroses' blood for 100, and that of a tiger an equal number. That of the lion, reindeer, and the human species produces pleasure which lasts 1,000 years. The flesh of these severally gives the pleasure for the same duration of time as their blood. Now attend to the different fruits, attending an offering of the flesh of a rhinoceros or antelope, as also of the flesh called rohita. The flesh of the antelope and rhinoceros pleases the goddess 500 years, and the rohita fish and badrinasa give my beloved, that is the goddess Kali, delight for 300 years. A spotless goat who drinks only twice in 24 hours, whose limbs are slender, and who is the prime among a herd, is called badrinasa, and is reckoned as the best of havyas, offerings to the deities, and kavyas, offerings to the deceased progenitors. The bird whose throat is blue, head red, and legs black with white feathers is called Bashrinasa, and is the king of birds, and is the favorite of me and Vishnu. By a human sacrifice attended by the forms laid down, Devi is pleased 1,000 years, and by sacrifice of 3 men, 100,000 years. By human flesh, Kamacha, Chandika and Bhairava, who assumes my shape, are pleased 1,000 years. An oblation of blood, which has been rendered pure by holy texts, is equal to ambrosia. The head offered much delight to the goddess Chandika. Let therefore the learned, when paying adoration to the goddess, offer blood and a head, and when performing the sacrifices of fire, make oblations of flesh. The gourd, sugarcane, and spirituous liquors and fermented liquors are looked upon as equivalent to other offerings, and please the goddess for the same duration of time as the sacrifice of a goat. The performance of the sacrifice with a chandrahas or gatri, 2 weapons of the king, is reckoned the best mode, and with a hecha or knife or a sangul, the second best, and the beheadings with a hoe, a bhala, an instrument of the spade kind, the inferior mode. Exclusive of these weapons, no others of the spear of arrow kind ought ever to be used in performing a sacrifice, as the offering is not accepted by the goddess, and the giver of it dies. He who, with his hands, tears off the head of the consecrated animal or bird shall be considered equally guilty with him who has slain a Brahman, and shall undergo great sufferings. Let not the learned use the axe before they have invoked it by holy texts, which have been mentioned heretofore, and framed by the learned for the occasion. Let those I now tell you be joined to them, and the axe invoked, and particularly so where the sacrifice is to be made to the goddess Durga and Kamacha. Let the sacrificer repeat the word Kali twice, then the words Devi, Bajeshwari, and Lord Dandayi Nama, which words may be rendered Hail Kali, Kali, Hail Devi, goddess of thunder, Hail iron-sceptred goddess. Let him then take the axe in his hand and again invoke the flame by the Kalratriya text as follows. Let the sacrificer say, Rang Rang, Kali Kali, O horrid-toothed goddess, eat, cut, destroy all the malignant, cut with this axe, bind, seize, drink blood, shveng, secure, salutations to Kali. Thus ends the Kalratriya mantra. The charge, the axe, being invoked by this text called the Kalratriya mantra, Kalratri, the goddess of darkness, herself presides over the axe uplifted for the destruction of the sacrificer's enemies. The sacrificer must make use of all the texts directed previous to the sacrifice, and also of the following, addressing himself to the victim. Beasts were created by the self-existing, himself to be immolated at sacrifices. I therefore immolate thee without incurring any sin in depriving thee of life. Let the sacrificer then name the deity to whom the sacrifice is made, and the purpose for which it is performed, and by the above text immolate the victim whose face is to be towards the north, or else let the sacrificer turn his own face to the north, and the victim's to the east. Having immolated the victim, let him, without fail, mix salt and etc. as before mentioned with the blood. The vessel in which the blood is to be presented is to be, according to the circumstances of the offerer, of gold, silver, copper, brass, or leaves sewn together, or of earth, or tutaneg, or of any of the species of wood used in sacrifices. Let it not be presented in an iron vessel, nor in one made of the hide of an animal, or the bark of a tree, nor in a pewter, tin, or leaden vessel. Let not the blood be represented in the holy vessel named Srup and Such, nor on the ground. Let it not be presented in the ghata, that is, an earthen jar always used in other religious ceremonies. Let it not be presented by pouring it on the ground, or into any of the vessels used at other times for offering food to the deity. Let not the good man who wishes for prosperity offer the blood in any of those vessels. Human blood must always be presented in a metallic or earthen vessel, and never on any account in a vessel made of leaves or similar substance. The offering of a horse, except at the Ashwamedha sacrifice, is wrong, as also offering an elephant, except at the Gajamedha. Let therefore the ruler of men observe never to offer them, except on those occasions, and on no account whatsoever let him offer them to the goddess Devi, using the wild bull called Chanarada as substitute for the horse when the occasion requires one. Let not the Brahmin ever offer a lion or a tiger, or his own blood, or spirituous liquors to the goddess Devi. If a Brahmin sacrifices either a lion, a tiger, or a man, he goes to hell, and passes but a short time in this world attended with misery and misfortune. If a Brahmin offers his own blood, his guilt is equal to that of the slayers of a Brahmin, and if he offers spirituous liquors, he is no longer a Brahmin. Let not a Kshatri offer an antelope. If he does, he incurs the guilt of a Brahmin slayer, where the sacrifice of lions or tigers, or of the human species is required. Let the three first classes act thus. Having formed the image of the lion, tiger, or human shape with butter, paste, or barley meal, let them sacrifice the same as if a living victim, the axe being first invoked by the text. Where the sacrifice of a number of animals is to take place, it is sufficient to bring and present 2 or 3 to the deity, which serves as a consecration of the whole. I have now related to you, O Bhairava, in general terms, the ceremonies and forms of sacrifices attended now to different texts to be used on several different occasions. When a buffalo is presented to Devi, Bhairavi or Bhairava, let the sacrificer use the following mantra in invoking the victim: in the manner that thou destroyest horses, in the manner that thou earnest Chandika, destroy my enemies and bear prosperity to me, O buffalo. O steed of death, O exquisite and unperishable form, produce me long life and fame. Salutation to thee, O buffalo. Now attend to the particulars relative of the offering of human blood. Let a human victim be sacrificed at a place of holy worship or at a cemetery where dead bodies are buried. Let the oblation be performed in the part of the cemetery called Heruka, which has been already described, or at a temple of Kamakya, or on a mountain. Now attend to the mode. The cemetery represents me and is called Bhairava. It is also a part called Tantraranga. The cemetery must be divided into these 2 divisions and a third called Heruka. The human victim is to be immolated in the east division, which is sacred to Bhairava. The head is to be presented in the south division, which is looked upon as the place, skulls sacred to Bhairavi, and the blood is to be presented in the west division, which is denominated Haruka. Having immolated a human victim with all the requisite ceremonies at a cemetery or holy place, let the sacrificer be cautious not to cast eyes upon the victim. On other occasions also, let not the sacrificer cast eyes upon the victim immolated, but present the head with eyes averted. The victim must be a person of good appearance, and be prepared by ablutions and requisite ceremonies such as eating consecrated food the day before, and by abstinence from flesh and venery, and must be adorned with chaplets of flowers and besmeared with sandalwood. Then, causing the victim to face north, let the sacrificer worship the several deities presiding over the different parts of the victim's body. Let the worship be then paid to the victim himself by his name. Let the sacrificer worship the victim, adding whatever other texts are applicable to the occasion and have been before mentioned. Let not the female, whether quadruple or bird or a woman, be ever sacrificed. The sacrificer of either will indubitably fall into hell, where the victim of either the beasts or bird creation are very numerous. The immolation of a female is excusable, but this rule does not hold good as to the human species. Let not a Brahmin or a Chandal be sacrificed, nor a prince, nor that which has already been presented to a Brahmin or a deity, nor the offspring of a prince, nor who has conquered in battle, nor the offspring of a Brahmin, or of a Kshatri, nor of a childless brother, nor a father, nor a learned person, nor one who is unwilling, nor the maternal uncle of the sacrificer. Those not here named, and animals and birds of unknown species, are unfit. If these named are not forthcoming, let their place be supplied by a male ass or camel. If other animals are forthcoming, the sacrifice of a tiger, camel, or ass must be avoided. Having been first worshipped victim, whether human, beast, or bird, as directed, let the sacrificer immolate him, uttering the mantra directed for the occasion, and address the deity with the text laid down before. Let the head and the blood of a human victim be presented on the right side of Devi, and the sacrificer address her standing in front. Let the head and the blood of birds be presented on the left, and the blood of a person whose own body in front. Let the ambrosia proceeding from the heads of carnivorous animals and birds be presented on the left hand, as also the blood of all aquatic animals. Let the antelope's head and blood, and that of the tortoise, rhinoceros, and hare, and crocodile, and fish be presented in front. Let a lion's head and blood be presented on the right hand, and the rhinoceroses also. Let not, on any account, the head or blood of a victim ever be presented behind the deity, but on the right, left, and in front. Let the consecrated lamp be placed either on the right hand or in the front, but on no account on the left. Let incense be burnt on the left. and in front, but not on the right hand. Let perfumes, flowers, and ornaments be presented in front, with respect to the different parts of the circle. Where to present the offerings, the mode already laid down may be observed. Let Madira, spirituous liquor, be presented behind other liquids on the left. Where is it absolutely necessary to offer spirits, let the 3 first classes of men supply their place by coconut juice in a brass vessel or honey in a copper one. Even in a time of calamity, let not a man of the 3 first classes offer spirituous liquor except that made from flowers or stewed dishes. Let princes, ministers of states, councillors and vendors of spirituous liquors make human sacrifices for the purpose of attaining prosperity and wealth. If a human sacrifice is performed without the consent of the prince, the performer incurs sin. In cases of imminent danger or war, sacrifices may be performed at pleasure by princes themselves and their ministers, but by none else. The day previous to a human sacrifice, let the victim be prepared by the text Manastak and 3 Devi Gandha Sutras and the text Vadrang, and by touching his head with the axe and besmearing the axe with sandal and perfumes, and then taking some of the sandal from off the axe and besmearing the victim's neck therewith. Let then the text Ambe Ambika and the Todra and Bhairava texts be used, and Devi herself will guard the victim who, when thus purified, malady does not approach him, nor does his mind suffer any derangement from grief in similar causes, and nor does the death or birth of a kinsman render him impure. Having secured the victim with cords and also with mantras, let him strike off the head and present it to Devi, with due care. Let him make these sacrifices in proportion to the increase or decrease of his enemies, chopping off the heads of the victims for the purpose of bringing destruction on his foes, infusing, by holy texts, the soul of the enemy into the body of the victim, which will, when immolated, deprive the foe of life also. The blood must be drawn for the express purpose of an oblation, and from a man pure in body and soul, and free from fear. It must be caught in the petal of lotus and presented. It may be presented in a gold, silver, brass, or iron vessel, with due form, the text recited. The blood, if drawn by incision, made with a knife, axe, or sangal, gives pleasure, in proportion to the size of the weapon. The sacrificer may present 1/4 of the quantity which a lotus petal will contain, but he must not give more on any account, nor cut his body more than is necessary. He who willingly offers the blood of his body and his own flesh, the size of a grain of linseed, masha, til, or mudya, with zeal and fervency, obtains what he desires in the course of 6 months. He who performs sacrifices according to these rules obtains his wishes to the utmost extent. This is the dharma which Kali Puran preaches. After centuries of ahimsa, ordained by Manu, here is Himsa, in full blast, sanctioned by the tantras in its worst and all-inclusive form. These Hinsa practices, preached in the sanguinary chapter of Kali Puran, had become quite widespread. As to the revival of animal sacrifice, what happens at the Kali temple in Calcutta furnishes unmistakable proof that this temple should have become a perfect slaughterhouse where daily hundreds of goats are sacrificed to appease the goddess Kali can only be explained by the teachings of the Kali Puran. Today, human beings are not sacrificed to goddess Kali, but it does not mean that it never happened. On the contrary, there is abundant evidence to show that human sacrifice, like animal sacrifice, was practiced as taught by the Kali Puran. Dr. Rajendra Lal Mitra says, "The fact is well known that for a long time the rite of human sacrifice was common all over Hindustan, and persons are not wanting who suspect that there are still nooks and corners in India where human victims are occasionally slaughtered for the gratification of the Devi. In old families which belong to the sect of the Vamacharis, and whose ancestors formerly offered human victims at the Durga and Kali pujas, a practice still obtains of sacrificing in effigy in lieu of a living man. The effigy, a foot long, is made of dried milk and sacrificed according to the formula laid down in the Kalika Puran, the only addition being a few mantras designed typically to vivify the image. A friend of mine, Babu Hemchandra, Deputy Magistrate of 24 Parganas and the author of an excellent work on the culture of jute in Bengal, informs me that in the eastern districts of Bengal, this sacrifice is frequently performed, but the image, instead of being slaughtered by a single individual, is cut up simultaneously by all the grown members of the family, either with separate knives or with a single knife held jointly by all. This is known by the name of Satrubal, or sacrifice of any enemy. The sacrifice, both in the case of Narabali and Satrubali, is performed secretly, generally at midnight. The Shatrubali, however, is a distinct rite, apart from the Narabali of the Kalika Puran, and the authority for it occurs in the Vrihanila Tantra, in which it is said, after performing certain other rites therein described, a king should sacrifice his enemy in an effigy made with dried milk. He should slaughter it himself, looking at it with a fiery glance, striking deep and dividing it into two with a single stroke. This should be done after infusing life into it by the rite of prana pratishtha and repeating the name of the person to be destroyed. O consort Mahesha, he doubtless destroys thereby his enemies. Now the important point to note in this connection is that Kali is the wife of Shiva. The question that arises is, does Shiva accept animal sacrifice? The answer to this question is that at one time Shiva did live on animal sacrifice. This statement may come as a surprise to the present-day worshippers of Shiva, but it is in fact, and those need no evidence in support of it have only to refer to the Ashvalyan Griha Sutra, which gives a most elaborate description of a bull sacrifice for the appeasement of Shiva. I give below the actual text from the Ashvalyan Griha Sutra. This is what it says. 1. Now the spit ox sacrificed to Rudra. 2. In autumn or in spring under the nakshatra Ardra. 3. The vest of his herd. 4. An ox which is neither leprous nor speckled. 5. One with black spots according to some. 6. If he likes a black one of its color inclined to copper color. 7. He sprinkles it with water into which he has thrown rice and barley. 8. From head to tail. 9. With the formula, grow up, agreeable to Rudra, the great god. 10. He should let it grow up, when it has cut its teeth or when it has become a bull. 11. To a quarter of the horizon, which is sacrificially pure. 12. At a place which cannot be seen from the village. 13. After midnight. 14. According to some, after sunrise. 15. Having caused a Brahmin, who is versed in learning and knows the practice of this sacrifice, to sit down, having driven a fresh branch with leaves into the ground as a sacrificial post, having taken 2 creeping plants or kusha ropes as 2 girdles, and having wound the one round the sacrificial post, and tied the other round the middle of the animal's head, he binds it to the sacrificial post or to the girdle which he has tied to that post with the formula, agreeable to him to whom adoration is brought, I bind thee. 16. The sprinkling with water, and what follows is the same as that the animal sacrifice. 17. We shall state what is different. 18. Let him sacrifice the omentum with the patri, or with a leaf. Thus it is understood in the Shruti. 19. With the formula, to Hara, Mridda, Sarva, Shiva, Bhava, Mahadeva, Ugra, Bhima, Pashupati, Rudra, Shankara, Ishana, Svaha. 20. Or with the last 6 parts of that formula. 21. Or with the formula to Rudra Svaha. 22. Let him make barley offerings towards the 4 quarters of the horizon, to each on 4 rings of Kusa network, with the formulas, the hosts, Rudra, which thou hadst towards the eastern direction, to them this offering is brought, adoration to thee, do not harm me. In this way, the assigning of the offerings is performed according to the different quarters of the horizon. 23. With the following hymns, he should worship the four quarters, namely, What shall we do, Rudra? These prayers to Rudra. To thee, O Father. These songs to Rudra with the song bow. 24. This worship to the quarters of the horizon is performed at all sacrifices to Rudra. 25. The husks and chaff of the rice, the tail, the skin, the head, the feet of the sacrificial animal he should throw into the fire. 26. He should turn the skin to some use according to Samvatya. 27. To the north of the fire on the rows of Darbha grass or on rings of Kusha network, he should pour out the blood of the sacrificial animal with the formula hissing ones, noisy ones, searching ones, seizing ones, serpents, what here belongs to you, take that. 28. When then, turning the north, he assigns it to the serpents in the words hissing ones, what here belongs to you, take that. Then the serpents take whatever has flowed down there of blood or of the contents of stomach and entrails. 29. All names, all hosts, all exaltations belong to him. 30. Even to a man who knows only with words, sets forth some part of the ceremony, he will do no harm. Thus it is understood in the Shruti. 31. He should not partake of that sacrifice. 32. He should not take anything belonging to it into the village, for this god will do harm to human creatures. 33. He should keep away his people from the vicinity of the place where he has sacrificed. 34. On an express injunction, however, he should partake of that sacrificial food, for it will bring luck. 35. This split ox sacrifice procures wealth, open space, purity, sons, cattle, long life, splendor. 36. After he has sacrificed, he should let loose another animal. 37. He should not be without such an animal. 38. Then he will not be without cattle. Thus it is understood in the Shruti. 39. Muttering the Santatiya hymn, he should go to his house. 40. If disease befalls his cattle, he should sacrifice to that same god in the midst of his cow stable. 41. A mess of cooked food, which he sacrificed in his entirety. 42. Having thrown the sacrificial grass and the Adhhyaya into the fire, he should lead his cows through the smoke. 43. Murmuring the Santatya hymn, he should go in the midst of his cattle. 44. Adoration to Shonika, adoration to Shonika. Today Shiva does not accept animal sacrifice. This change in the form of worship of Shiva is the result of the acceptance by the principle of ahimsa. Having changed from himsa to ahimsa, the Brahmins changed Shiva from a himsak god to an ahimsak god. The cult of Kali has come into being long after Shiva had become an ahimsak god. Nevertheless, Kali, his wife, was made an ahimsak goddess. The result is that we have a cruel contrast of a bloodless god having a bloodthirsty goddess as his wife. Isn't this a riddle? Why did the Brahmins do such a thing?